turbine, isn't there, out of the nacelle? So, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Good, good. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Laramie County Community College and for a wonderful event this afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Joe Schaefer, and I have the privilege of being the president of LCCC, and it's my distinct honor to announce that we are proud to be a stop on Secretary Duncan's cross-country back-to-school bus tour. This is the third time we've done this, correct? And this will be the third stop in Wyoming for the best stop in Wyoming. So, yes, we have folks from all over. So it's my pleasure. I'm going to just do some brief introductions, if that's okay, and then I'll introduce our fine guests. And I'd like to start with an introduction of the First Lady of the State of Wyoming, Carol Meade. And Carol, did you want to say a couple of words before? I know you have to leave, but...
Good afternoon and welcome to the Undersecretary and the rest of those fine folks traveling across the state. We're delighted to have you here in Wyoming. And I know as First Lady, education is such an important thing to me. I chose literacy as an area to focus on. And so your efforts, along with the folks here who work every day in this field, we commend you. So thank you for being here. Obviously, a very important part of education is the vocational aspect, and that's a fine education. Not everybody is cut out to go to a four-year college and continue on for other, pursuits. So we want in Wyoming to recognize those efforts as very, very important and a great addition. Those provide wonderful, well-paying jobs here in Wyoming. So anyway, welcome to the state, and we're glad to have you.
Thanks, Carol. And also like to introduce the State Superintendent of Schools, Cindy Hill, is with us today, so thank you for taking the time to come as well. And there are so many dignitaries and important people in here. I'm afraid I will miss folks, but I can tell you we have wonderful people and partners from the University of Wyoming who have made the trip over to be part of this today. We have trustees and senior staff from many of the Wyoming community colleges. In other places, I see our folks from across the state and up north in Casper. Thank you for coming. There are trustees from LCCC here as well. We have the members of the Commission of the Wyoming Community College Commission in attendance today. We have business representatives. We have local and state elected officials. These are some fine, fine folks that are here and really looking forward to engaging in a conversation with you three. So we are excited to get this town hall started, and I think I will just take 2 seconds and introduce the three fine ladies that are here with us today. We have already spent some time with Dr. Brenda Dan Messier, who is the Assistant Secretary in the Office of Vocation and Adult Education, and it's just a pleasure to get to know you a little bit, Brenda.
Thank you for hosting us today.
Here. And then the Undersecretary of Education, Dr. Martha Kanter, who we like to be very proud of, our first community college leader who has taken this post and is doing such a fabulous job in that post. Welcome to Wyoming and LCCC. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. And then the Chief of Staff for the Secretary, Joanne Weiss, thank you for coming and looking forward to hearing from you as well. So I am going to start this off. I actually have a couple of questions. And so the way we will do this is I have a question for each of our guests, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And I believe we have a couple of microphones out there, Mary Ellen, Arlene, and so we'll do this. Why don't I start by asking you, Dr. Kanter, I'm glad to see that the administration has placed such a focus on community colleges. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, well, for a long time, 40-year career in education and, most of it in community colleges, I often called community colleges the unsung heroes of American education, and other times I've called them the middle child because they are in between high school and the university. They are often a segue between adult education and higher education and the workforce, and they're also a gateway directly into the kinds of certificates and degrees that we want Americans to have. So all day we've been listening to employers and educators talk about jobs that are waiting for students, that we don't have the well-trained, well-skilled workforce to meet and take those jobs. And this is what the community colleges do in partnership with adult education, in partnership with business and industry, in partnership with the University of Wyoming and state universities and other private institutions. So I just think the community colleges play a central role. They're an important segment of education and a very great partner for American higher education.
Great, thank you. Joanne, this question is for you. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of career and college readiness in the 21st century?
Yeah, it almost goes without saying, doesn't it? I mean, there are no good jobs, and I mean 0 good jobs for people who drop out of high school in our economy today. They're just not there. And we have far too many kids dropping out of high school. So actually having programs that work to really retain people, that engage students, that are relevant to students' lives, that cause them to stay in school all the way until they get that high school degree and then continue on and get either some kind of certificate or a 2-year or a 4-year degree are just critical not only to our economy, and we heard a lot from different employers throughout the state of Wyoming today, but not only to employers but also to individuals, to being able to have a family and raise a family and have a life that's the kind of life we would all want for our children. So it's absolutely critical. I'm really happy that Wyoming was actually among the first states to adopt the new standards. So you've really got new standards in your state that are hopefully going to help really prepare students better for college and careers. So that's a huge cornerstone of an education change that you're going through in this state, and it's terrific. But we've got a long way to go, and it's absolutely critical for every one of our students that we get there.
Brenda, you've had a little bit of time to visit the campus, and you've got to now meet some folks both from the college as well as the school district. What did you learn this afternoon? What do you think about what's happening here in Cheyenne?
Well, I learned that you have a very strong focus on career and technical education, and particularly your wind energy technology program. And what's significant about your program is that it's really aligned to the needs of business and industry and key employers, and that students are sometimes even being pulled out of the program before they graduate because there's such a demand for folks to fill those positions. And the students, I met with some of the students that are in the front row here today who were in that program, the fact that they were able to go on, do internships all across the West. And I was really struck by what you said, Patrick, that during your internship, the employer was so impressed with the focus you had on safety. And so then I asked the instructor if you're also providing safety training for the employers in the region, and you are. So the fact that you're clearly aligned to the needs of your local and state economy in terms of developing the career and technical education programs, I think is very significant, and that's what I found out. But also what was interesting was how well you're working with your secondary, your adult education, and of course the community college, because we do have to align and clearly articulate the pathways for youth and adults from secondary to post-secondary education, and you do that very well. I was also very impressed, Jacob, with your career development program, because so many of our students really don't know all the careers that are available to them and what it takes to get on a career pathway and be successful and secure the family-sustaining wages that Joanne talked about. So your hub program is a very good one where you're really providing free services to not only the students but to the community members here on what career opportunities are available. So I was only here for a very short period of time, but I was very, very, very impressed with your responsiveness, your flexibility, how nimble you are in being able to respond to the needs of business and industry, but more importantly, how you really were able to provide students an education that provided them industry-valued credentials, certifications, and the post-secondary degrees. So it was very impressive, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the good work that you're doing here.
Wonderful, thank you. You know, one of the things that's probably the most impressive about a state like Wyoming and all the work that we do in education is there's a certain get-it-done mentality here, and folks are willing to roll up their sleeves and get that work done. And it's been very rewarding for me to step into that environment and see the great things that are happening here across the state. And so it's nice for us to be able to highlight a little bit like we did this afternoon.
And I even was able to meet one of your donors who is a real champion of your wind energy technology. And I understand he provides every Friday sticky buns. And I asked him if he brought some for us today, but unfortunately he did not.
That's all right, we're on diets.
But it's a good incentive.
Yes, it is. So let's open it up to the audience. I know there's questions out there, and we have some wonderful resources here from the Department of Education. So, questions?
My question would be, I'm Kelly Wilmarth, Program Manager for our Adult Basic Education Center here at LCCC. We're transitioning to a new GED in 2014 and have a lot of uncertainty with that. Would just like the department's view on the steps that are going on right now with GED testing service and the information they're providing to us, and also you know, how we're going to step up and meet all of the needs that you're wanting us to do.
Sure. Well, we understand that the GED testing service will come out with a new test in 2014, and that the state directors, and Marcia Hess is your adult education state director, and you're very lucky to have her because she's very much on top of all the changes that are going to occur with the 2014 with the test. From the Department of Education, we're really most concerned that our faculty are well prepared to prepare the students to be able to pass the test. And so we're working very closely with the state directors all across the country to provide professional development support and materials to enable them to support the students. So I think all of us understand the changes are coming, and we're getting well prepared. Our role in the Department of Education is really to provide professional development opportunities and materials. And as you probably know, we have a links system, a technology platform that allows you to share materials all across the country so that all of you can be preparing the students for the test.
The other thing I just add is that we learned that Carbon County School District is going to be a pilot test site for the new GED. So that's the part, and we saw the distance learning opportunities to maybe share information through links and other virtual means, whether it's, you know, two-way television or you name it, to really learn about what's available there, maybe see the test, and see whether that pilot test could expand to more than one site.
That's not our decision. Those are decisions that are made by the GED testing service.
Right.
No, I just would add that I know that there's some consternation about the fact that the test will go online. But prior to coming to the United States Department of Education, I was an adult education director as well. And all of my students wanted access to technology and wanted to be able to use the technology. And so while it's a challenge for our programs to make sure that they have the technology infrastructure, it's certainly what our students need in order to be successful in the workplace today.
Questions? One up here, and then we'll get to...
Hi, my name's Gay Woodhouse, and my son received a certificate for the diesel program here. He has found out in his work, he got hired before he even got the certificate. I mean, he was done with his first year. He got hired right on the spot locally, which was great for me since he's got 2 kids. There's a program, a kind of a competing program, with a cost probably 10 times more over in Laramie. So my question is, how do you communicate to people and how do you get the word out that this program is an excellent program and certainly a much more affordable program for people who want to go into that particular vocation?
These 3 lovely ladies punted that to me, Gay, so thank you. We'll have a conversation later. I think it is one of the most, probably one of the most challenging things. You know, in many ways, it's easy for us in public education to sit back and lament the fact that the for-profits and the non-for-profit private higher education institutions are very aggressive in recruiting students and making it easy for those students to find their way into educational programs. So yes, without a doubt, we believe that the product we have is top-notch. It is affordable. We know what we're doing when you get into our classrooms here. But the reality is we maybe haven't been as aggressive in actually responding to students and showing them the path to enrollment, financial aid, how you get in here. Do it. There are many, many, many opportunities for students to access higher education. There are affordable opportunities. And we could probably take a card out of the private sector's deck and understand what you do to make the front door experience for these students so easy and so enjoyable that when they get to their first day of class, they're not frustrated, they're excited and they're energized. Now, unfortunately, what we hear and find is they get them in there and the frustration comes later. We we give them the frustration and then they find the enjoyment. So somewhere in there is a model that we should adapt or adopt that would actually work. And so I actually believe that it is the way we engage students from the very first touch is probably more important to their success, or at least as important to their success from the way we get them into the classroom then. And so we have work to do, and I believe that the Department of Education and many of our policymakers have also recognized that there are challenges and opportunities by looking at both models, and I think we can do that.
I think also, I just add that for our part, we'll be releasing the something called the College Scorecard. If you want to see the first draft of it, it was published on the White House website 4 or 5 months ago, and the final version is coming out very soon. And on that scorecard, any family member would be able to go and type in and see the school that they want to go to and see what the graduation rate is, what the loan default rate is after graduation, which accounts for oftentimes the disappointment, the high cost, and not really getting the job that your son got, and other factors, employment, earnings after graduation for the different careers that the students may be interested in. So we're trying to get information that is transparent to everyone out about every school in the country, because we know, you have 7,200 schools to choose from across the country. Most people will stay local, they'll know about Laramie, or they'll get marketed to go to some other school, and it's all about making the right choices. So we really have to help the country educate our Americans to make good choices and be able to compare the kinds of institutions they're thinking about going to, so they will understand they have the means to go, it's the right place for the student that's thinking about moving on from high school or coming in from an adult education program. So we're hoping that educators will really step up to the plate when we get the scorecard released officially and help people use it. It's going to be a great tool for orientation to college, a great tool along with our federal aid application for high schools to use counselors and other people to really get to know what those choices are, what the cost is, the price, the graduation, the default rates, etc.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Warren. I'm the director of the TRIO program at Laramie County Community College. TRIO is alive and well in Wyoming. TRIO programs have always been involved with college access and completion agendas since its inception in 1965, growing over the years to embrace a wider range of services and students, as well as improving college attainment rates of under-resourced students. Yet TRIO has lost more students under this administration than any other previous administration. In fact, with the results of the recent Upward Bound competition, TRIO now serves 85,000 fewer students across the nation than it did in FY 2005. If TRIO is a viable part of this administration's college completion agenda, why are we serving fewer students, and what support can we expect from the Department of Education to continue being a viable component of this agenda?
Well, I can talk to that. I just was the keynote speaker at the TRIO conference last Friday and had a great conversation with Dr. Mitchum, who is the president of the TRIO organization. And we said basically, TRIO has suffered some reductions like pretty much every other program, but not a significant reduction as some other programs in the department have suffered. We think TRIO does a great job. We think, we will be making the case for funding for TRIO, but we're in a difficult time. We are coming out of a very bad economy, and so it's been tough to meet all the needs that we have for even maintaining the programs at the level we would like. The good news is that we are actually using some of the dollars to put into Upward Bound math and science to grow the pipeline of, as you said, under-resourced students into college and beyond. So we've got a lot of things that we're trying to do to make ends meet. We want to thank you for making the TRIO programs even more efficient to serve as many students as you can. I was going to ask, how many less students have you served here in your TRIO program? Have you noticed a reduction?
My program has not been reduced.
Okay.
I'm in the next go-round.
Congratulations to you for having a success story, and I think we'd be very interested in learning from you how, with the funding you were able to get from the department, you were able to maintain that success to let so many students continue their education. So I think all of us speak on behalf of the good works that TRIO is doing and has done over these many decades. But all of us are in a real situation where we just simply have not had the funding that we'd like for many of our programs.
Running a microphone to you. 1 second.
I can talk loud. I'm Marcia Hess, and I'm the State Director for Adult Basic Education. I work with the Wyoming Community College Commission. One of the things that we have in our state that is, I don't know if you've heard about during your tour, but our legislature, when this past year, backfilled the Even Start money. When Even Start went away, that program was felt to be very valuable in our state. And so not only did they backfill the money, they added additional money. We now have 8 family literacy programs in the state. One of them that just opened this last month is completely full. And so that's over in the Uinta Boces, and you drove through that beautiful area. Adult education continues to try and partner with all of our different partners around the state, whether that's Wyoming workforce, whether that's the family literacy program. The transition has become a very vital part of our program, trying to definitely align our curriculum. And I think that this is an area that you can help us with as well, and that's making sure that the adult education brings up the standard to align to the community colleges so that our students, it's only been in the last few years that we have actually said GED is not the end point. And there's this gap between even adult education and getting into college credit-bearing classes. And so I think that we all need to work more closely, both our community colleges as well as our adult education programs, so that we don't have our students going in developmental classes, taking 1, 2, or more classes, and then not completing, because that's such a high dropout rate in that gap.
Marcia, we couldn't agree with you more. We really think that it's very important to make sure that the students see receiving their GED as their first step, and that they really also need to transition into post-secondary education. The research is quite clear. Over 60% of the jobs by 2018 are going to require some form of post-secondary education. And so we have to make sure that our adult education students, as well as our secondary education students, are going on to post-secondary education. And as you know, that we've been really focused on creating career pathways and making sure as the framework for this work for our students, so they can go from basic education and be successful in college and careers. And I also agree with you that we have a real role to play in the whole area of remediation, because our work is so similar, and so it's incumbent upon adult education programs to align their courses with community colleges so that students will have a seamless transition. And we're working very closely with the state directors, and we're working very closely with our colleagues all across government, the Department of Labor, HHS, to make sure that Career Pathways is the framework for all of our resources, so that the students really don't notice any transition problems at all, and it's seamless for them.
About 10 years ago, I asked our vice president at my community college to go over and meet with the instructional leader in the adult ed program and just take English as a second language and use what the high school standard was for English language graduation, align it to the adult ed standard, and align it to my community college, and then align it to the university entering freshman English standard. And what happened was they found out all the levels were different. And so that's a lot of hard work. It's very cumbersome, but I want to congratulate you for starting the conversation and bringing the partners together, because what we need to do is get rid of the bureaucracy and align the standards. Standards for adult learners may be different than from a high school graduate, because adult literacy, language literacy is different maybe when you're an older adult versus a young person coming up out of high school. But we all want to meet that standard that every student will be literate in this country. So those conversations best happen at that level. We're not going to come up with all of that in Washington. You've already agreed on the Common Core. Use that. The universities, the community college know what your standard are for entering freshmen. That should be aligned. And let's get on with it. As you said, you get things done, and we just need to do more of that around the country.
Marcia, just the fact that you're placed here with the community college already is a big step going forward. Some of the folks don't even have those relationships. So you're very far ahead of the game in Wyoming, and we really applaud you for that work.
Yes, I'm John Sanford, one of the faculty here on campus. And the comment earlier was looking at the scorecard that came out of the White House, as well as the competition between the private sector and the public sector education. One of my concerns, secondary here on campus, is the area of accreditation. And we know that accreditation is driven out of the Department of Education through the various accrediting organizations such as HLC. Can you give us any insight as to how the department might be handling accreditation issues or pushing forward some standards through to the various accrediting commissions?
Yeah, I mean, I can say this is for us the bigger question of what are the competencies. You know, when you asked your question about adult education and language and literacy, or we ask about mathematics, or we ask about the skills that the students need for the WIN, the WIN technology curriculum. And this is about what are those competencies that are going to say you are college and career ready, or you have met the standards for college graduation, for certificate completion, for degree completion. So what we're doing is really putting out a call to higher education to come forward and really work on those competencies. We accredit the accrediting organizations. That's the role that we play. And accreditation really is a local phenomenon. And we have a lot of variation. As I said, the same conversation about the standards can be said for accreditation. And what we need is really to follow the lead on the Common Core and come to some common understanding of what are the competencies in the WIN program here that are going to prepare students for jobs in this industry, to be great citizens, to be able to participate in a community and earn a family-sustaining wage. So for us, our accreditation conversation going forward is going to be much more about competencies. If you want to know more about this, there's a lot of work being done. There's a big paper that's been written on degree qualifications and what that variation is and how to bring things together. I think you've got your state higher education executive officer here. We're really glad to have you here because you are in the middle of those conversations for the state of Wyoming, and look forward to working with you on that.
Hi, I'm Sandy Shaner, and I'm a trustee here in our school district. My question is specifically with regard to your principles, innovation, accountability. How much involvement do you have with the actual curriculum that's being offered, say at the community college level, or what you're guiding students to get to say get into a wind energy program, and you look at the expectations of the future of the certain program that you're promoting? Is it realistic? Is it positive? Will it be worthwhile once they get out?
I think you're talking about some of the principles in our CTE blueprint. We came out with a blueprint to transform career and technical education, and we have 4 core principles, and one of them is alignment. And we want to make sure with the limited federal funds from the Perkins program that the states are funding programs that meet the local and state economic needs. We will not dictate that from Washington. That's going to be done at the local and state level in consultation with the business and industry leaders in your state, your workforce investment boards, and your economic development officers. So we think it's very, very important for our federal dollars to be really used for the in-demand, high-growth sectors where the jobs are. Good example is your wind energy technology. So the students are being prepared for the jobs that are going unfilled. All across the country, there are 3 million jobs that are going unfilled because employers cannot find the skilled workforce. So we need to make sure that we're preparing our young people and our adults to fill those jobs, but also the jobs of the future.
So, one thing you can look at as a trustee, we've had a partnership since we came to office with the Department of Labor. We pretty much meet with the Department of Labor folks every single week. And the good news is that Congress and the President everyone together signed a bill that is giving all of our states in the country a minimum of $2.5 million and a maximum of, I think this year, $15 million for programs to actually increase the capacity of the programs in, you know, the WIN program, or if it's healthcare, if it's IT, whatever meets the local needs. And I know Laramie and other community colleges are part of consortia of community colleges to say, if we want to, you know, build out the WIN program with other community colleges here in Wyoming or in the country, what would it look like? That's what those funds are being used for, and we're hoping that Laramie and others can apply for this next round of grants that'll be coming this next year. There's another $500 million to go. I'd say look at the standards, look at the grants, you know, work through your president to say, where is the innovation happening in the curriculum, in these colleges that may be very well here, that this is the program that's going to be a signature program for the rest of the country, or it may be somewhere else in healthcare. We just visited a fantastic career academy in healthcare at Rock Springs. They've got a partnership with Western Community College, so it can happen anywhere. The innovation, I call them islands of excellence. They happen all over. Unfortunately, our challenge is, can we replicate the best of the best and help other institutions really scale those so that every student has access to them and can decide what best meets their needs.
Did that answer your question, Sandy?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I wonder if I might ask one. You know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on in community colleges, and I think the expectation is there from our boards of trustees, from our legislators, and certainly from other policymakers, is that we partner. And we reach out and we partner with private sector, we reach out and partner with nonprofit community-based organizations. One of the struggles that we are dealing with in this age, because there is such a wonderful focus on completion, on student success, and on the community colleges, is almost an overload of initiatives, of groups, of agendas, of those types of things. And they're all wonderful. They all have their own purpose, and I believe it has shed a very opportune and timely light on community colleges, without a doubt. But I'm wondering, what is the Department of Education doing to coordinate and partner with these national initiatives? And I know you only have so much of an ability to do that, but it really can be overwhelming. The noise from the completion agenda can be overwhelming at times, and that's one of the things that we really could benefit from strong collaboration at the federal level.
Well, I mean, one of the things we would hope that philanthropy will do is join together around a few big things. That, you know, every program wants its signature. And what we find, for example, in science, technology, math, and engineering, the STEM programs, we have now an effort that's led by the Carnegie Foundation to bring 80 partners together to identify a couple things. We need to get more teachers well-trained in math and science for our K-12 schools. The president said we'd like to have 100,000 teachers out of the 1.6 million teachers that we're going to need to replace all of the teachers and add new teachers for the country. So that's a good example where the different philanthropies have come together, the different foundations, local, state, and national, to say we're going to do this thing together. And so to push, you know, at the federal level, that confluence of goals so that they can work together and be more coherent when they come to you, so that 10 foundations aren't coming to you. The other thing, same can be said for business and industry. Everyone would like a perfectly customized program for information technology. So we have Cisco, we have Microsoft, we have on and on and on, all the companies, and we really want to play a role at the federal level to bring those consortia together. We've done it in manufacturing. That's our sort of first success story, where advanced manufacturing has agreed on common standards, and they've agreed on what they'd like to see in the curriculum for standards coming out of the community colleges and the universities. So it's that kind of work that hopefully will simplify your job, so that you're not working with 25 companies around 25 different sets of standards, but one common core standard for, in that case, the manufacturing. We'd like to see that in health careers and other fields of study.
The only thing I would add is that we also have that challenge at the federal level. And I think it's a hallmark, really, of the Obama administration that we're really trying to work very effectively across government to make it easier for you in the state and local communities. And I'll give you a perfect example of how that's happening, and I hope it will be a resource for all of you. Attorney General Holder has put together a cabinet-level reentry council, and all the cabinet secretaries are working together on how do we ensure that prisoners that are reentering our community have access to all the services they need. And so it's a wonderful way of really breaking down the silos and breaking down the barriers across government, so that students, institutions, and communities have all the resources ready at their disposal. And so we have to really encourage public partnerships, but also public and private partnerships. And I think really Martha's point about the role of philanthropy, that's their role, and they've been really willing to step up to the plate and help us in that.
You know, the other thing to do, I've seen, you know, it happened in the Santa Clara County area I came from. We got one of the local foundations to play what we called an intermediary role. They were the partner, and so then when the principals, high school principals were getting solicited, and the community college folks and the universities, we said, if you would, you know, coordinate with the Community Foundation of Silicon Valley, they'll be able to show you the range of programs and come through there, so that it really took pressure off the principals who were trying to respond to every request that they had, and it became overwhelming for them.
Other questions? I don't mean to put certain people on the spot, but we have wonderful individuals from the University of Wyoming here. We have folks who have traveled from the other community colleges. I see some of my colleagues from Casper here as well, and they may have things that they want to share, either challenges or feedback. You already identified Dr. Rose, who's here from the state level, and so I don't want to put you on the spot, but these folks have traveled, and I know they have something to contribute. So, but Rachel, please.
Okay, I think it's great. We can all agree that we need to help more students transition to the higher ed and take those classes, but my question has to do with the financial aid piece. So helping students transition is one thing. There's a new IRS data retrieval tool system in place with the FAFSA, and we have seen that students are now being held up on that process because they aren't able to, I think although well-intentioned, it is holding students up, and we have seen students are not able to receive their financial aid. They have had to drop out of classes, and they are not able to proceed. So how can we help address that and help students with that process and get our ideas on how to better improve that process for students?
Yeah, I'd say two things. I had a big conference with about 20 TRIO leaders at the meeting I mentioned when I talked about the TRIO program, and they have a set of recommendations on the IRS data retrieval process. It's a lot of in the weeds for most people here, but when a student applies for federal aid, if on their income taxes it says Martha Kanter, and then my address says 1515 P Street, and I write out street, and then I apply in the software and it says ST, not street, it'll kick it out. So we don't have perfect software. We're taking all of the recommendations that you made, and we're going to have a webinar to really understand what we can do. And it's a good example of the partnership Brenda mentioned. The great news is on the federal student aid form, and I know all the high school students fill out the federal aid form because whether they qualify for a scholarship, a grant, state, local, or federal, that's the route in. We've redesigned the student aid form and the website. So I think it's going to be very helpful to students and families. It's studentaid.gov if you want to see, and it says, how do I plan for college, how do I apply, how do I go, and how do I pay for it? So we've tried to really listen to hundreds and hundreds of people around the country who gave us focus group recommendations to say this is what will help you get the information you need to figure out which is the best college for you, or the post-secondary training program, or the adult ed program that you would want to see going forward. But back to the data retrieval, our partnership with the IRS, that was one of the things we did the first year we came. Now you can push a button on that student aid form, and you can port your prior year taxes in because you have your special ID and your privacy is protected. So we're doing a lot of things like that with the IRS, and I never thought I'd go to a conference or a meeting to celebrate the collaboration between the Department of Education and the IRS and the Social Security Administration, but that's one example of the improvements. So I think they will really listen hard to what we're finding in the software so we can get an easier experience for every student.
And if you have additional recommendations, please let us know. We'll leave you our business cards before we leave, and just feel free to email us with your comments.
I have to just add that the head of the IRS was a teacher for several years before he went into finance. And so he has a soft spot in his heart for us, and we have taken advantage of that every step of the way.
I'm Carol Prust. I'm one of the vice presidents of the University of Wyoming, and I'm here really to represent President Buchanan. Thank you so much for coming. And I would like to make sure that everybody in the audience knows how responsive you are when you say, I'll give you my card and I'll get you the information. I was at a meeting with, hundreds of people in the audience when you were speaking, Dr. Kanter, and you referred to a publication that I thought would be really helpful to those of us at UW as we were revising our admission standards. And you got right on your BlackBerry and texted somebody. And before I was even back in my seat, I had the document in my inbox.
Power of technology.
But my question is a bit different. I spend a lot of time thinking about why we should encourage people to take advantage of higher education. And there are a couple of arguments we hear a lot. The first one's right there on your poster. Education drives America. We know that the more educated our population is, the more taxes each of those persons who has an advanced degree will be paying. And that's a pretty important thing for our country. The other argument you hear an awful lot is about jobs. That if you want a good job, you need to have that associate's degree. You need to have that bachelor's degree. And that's true too, and it's also very important. But I think there's a third reason that we seek education, and it's much squishier, and sometimes it comes across as kind of a luxury, and I would really appreciate your insights in how to accentuate that aspect that higher education gives to us. And it's that part that's really hard to describe, but it's what really makes our lives richer and fuller. And I think sometimes it's not till we have gray hair that we look back at some of the things that we did as college students, like taking those harpsichord lessons, or taking the global food and poverty class and really getting an appreciation for what the whole international situation is. Things that really make the texture of our society richer and better. How do we make that argument for higher education?
I'll just start because I'm sure we could talk for hours about this because I think it's a really important topic. But I think that developing a love of learning is one of the most important things that our education system from preschool all the way up through higher education does for us. And it does sound like a luxury, but we know that being a good learner, loving learning, and being good at learning is something that is invaluable to us. You can't figure out the ways in which it's going to change your life, but it does dramatically. So whether it's somebody who has had a first career and at the age of 50 says, you know what, I want to do something different for the next 20 years and feels empowered to do that because they feel like I know how to learn. I can go back and do that kind of thing. Or somebody who comes to this country and doesn't have the skills they need to get a job here, feels empowered to go to an adult learning class and develop those skills. I mean, it just comes in so many different ways, but it all goes back to that essential confidence in yourself that you can do it and love of just learning new things. And it is intangible and sounds squishy, but probably is the most important thing of all that we convey to students in the course of their education.
You know, a bunch of people have talked to me about, well, we always talk about college and career and the Common Core, 2 C's, Common Core, college and career. And when they talk to me, they say, add a third C, add citizenship. That what does it mean to be an American? And it means that you've got a great skill, you're going to be a diesel mechanic, you've got a great job, but we also want you to contribute to the community, we want you to do service, we want you to be an American that participates in society, makes your community better, and maybe it's through the arts, maybe it's through science, maybe it's through, some kind of hands-on training program, but we want you to continue to be, as Joanne said, a love of learning all the time, because that's what our students are going to have to do. And, in my career in education, I've been an educator, but now students are facing changing jobs 5, 6, 3, 4 times in their lifetime, so they're going to have to keep learning, and that's what we want to do.
Just one surprising statistic that is hard to get your head wrapped around. The kids entering kindergarten today, 70% of them are going to have jobs that haven't been invented yet. You've got to love learning in order to be able to survive in a world like that.
I think we have time for one more question. Joe.
My name is Joe McCann. I work for the Community College Commission here in Wyoming. one of the barriers for many of our students is the fact that 60% of the community college students across the nation require some kind of developmental coursework. And the challenge is that this has became a holding tank for a number of decades for individuals, and they don't emerge to take the college level courses that they need. And I'm asking what may be on the horizon to break this down into skill building that the students lack, rather than running them through the same coursework and the same series of skill building that they did in high school.
I just say, I went to Baltimore County Community College, and they had 300 faculty members there from community colleges all across the country. And the title of what they're doing and the name of their consortium is Accelerating Developmental Education. And what they were doing was looking across the country to say, how are we going to game change this challenge that we have and get more students through? We don't need 3 levels of remediation or 5 levels of remediation. We should have open labs. Students shouldn't have to learn something twice that they already know, but if they got stuck, we should start with a student where they're stuck. And I think, the adult education program has a lot to teach the community college developmental ed and vice versa to really share to get world-class developmental education all across the country, because frankly, we have 47% of adults cannot read at the high school level. Brenda tells me this. We have 93 million adults that are at the basic or below basic level of education. So literacy for all is really something that we're talking very seriously about. The research is telling us that the ways the curriculum have been designed are 20th century. So we need to really reinvent, and we need to bring the partners to the table to do it differently.
And sir, I might add that there are a number of very effective evidence-based models out there, and we'd be happy to share those with you.
Thank you. Would you ladies like to make some closing remarks?
I just really want to thank you for your hospitality, thank you for hosting us, but really more importantly, thank you for the wonderful work you're doing to prepare all of your students for careers, for the jobs that are going vacant right now, but also the jobs of the future. It's really been a wonderful experience to see how responsive you are to the needs of business and industry and the needs of the community. Thank you very much for having us.
And I'd like to congratulate the students for choosing a great career pathway and for putting in the time and effort to really become the workforce of the future that this country is going to need. So I have to congratulate the college for developing this program, for having us out to see the site here. It's phenomenal. And, whether it was Carbon County or whether it was Rock Springs High School or whether it's here at Laramie County, it's been a tremendous, tremendous visit for us. We have learned so much from you. We took notes. Joanne and I have been writing notes all day long, getting back on the bus, trying to figure out, what are the lessons learned that we can take back, because the great ideas are here. They aren't going to come from Washington. We've got to be more strategic, more efficient. We've got to break through a lot of barriers that we have there. But I just think the students are evidence of what you're doing, and everyone that crosses that finish line gets a certificate or a degree. Congratulations to each of you.
I'll just say here, because I thought those were 2 terrific summaries of the things that we've been seeing throughout the day. So thank you all for inviting us.
Well, on behalf of LCCC here, as well as all of us in Cheyenne and Wyoming, thank you for taking the time to make a stop here in Cheyenne and certainly in Rock Springs and Wyoming, a purposeful point along your tour across the country. So we are pleased to be able to share a little bit about what we're doing. We're grateful for the opportunity to share some of our thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and your willingness to hear those. So best of luck on the rest of your trip, and thank you again.
Thanks so much.